I'm currently in a train environment. I'm currently at the high school, but I'm going to talk about some differences between being in a building or being in a district. Before I kick things off here, if you could help us out and put, um, if there is more than one of you in a room and it's not reflected in your Zoom name, I'll call it, can you put that in the chat, what your name is and which district you're with for the people who again, maybe you have two or more people in a room and that's not reflected. We just want to make sure we get everybody checked in that's here and add users to the registration list so we can track who is here today. So if you wouldn't mind doing that in the chat. Um, my name is Stephen Parpart, by the way. I am on the core PowerSchool team, as well as I do a lot with Power Scheduler. I mentioned Susan Payne from our state reporting team, but we also have Kim Anderson, Margie Lee, and Meredith Reagan from our core team as well, all helping out today on the call. So we have some of our people watching the chat and tracking. And again, we're trying to make sure we collect everybody's names for our registration. So we appreciate it.
Yeah, I thought it was
Go ahead and drop that in the chat if you would.
He said for the first hour, basically.
All right. So the first thing I want to show you is a couple of documents I'm going to reference here. I sent those in the reminder email yesterday, so you would have seen them yesterday in your email if you registered for this training. And I'm not going to go through all the steps on how to find our documentation. I know we do that at a lot of trainings. Most of you have seen that before. We do have a short video out on YouTube, just very brief on how to get there. But I will just point out for those of you who are brand new, our documentation can all be found within the PowerSchool help menu. So I'm clicking on that little question mark. I would go to meta documentation. I can search by name or I can filter by topic. And you will find everything I'm referencing, and Susan's referencing, in fact, today via the subject of course management in our documentation. So I just wanted to point out a couple of documents that I'm going to be using. I have them pulled up on my desktop right now, so I'll just slide them over to my shared screen. One of the processes I'll be walking through this morning is simply creating a new course in PowerSchool. And this is more or less a step sheet with some with basically explaining all the fields that you would want filled in. So again, I'll go through it, but this would be a good guideline if you had this next to you or up on another screen or something like that. So just wanted to point that out. I will also be talking about the basics in course availability to the year and the school buildings. And we do have a document on that. I gave this a little refresh just yesterday. I realized in our screenshots it had some past years on there, let's say. So I gave it a refresh, and we've got some current years now that we're working in. So I just thought it would make a little more sense if we had the more modern screenshots in there. So you have the updated version in your email, and we now have it in our documentation as well. And then thirdly, just something I'm going to talk about very briefly before I jump in here in actual PowerSchool is a few years ago, I think several of our districts do this, but one of our districts specifically did share this doc with us a few years ago. And again, I updated it for the new year. That's all I really changed on here. But what this is it's a document that the person in your district or the people in your district that create courses in your district can share out to schools or users. And it's a good way to have your users submit new courses to you. So our recommendation, our advisement is that very few people in a district would create new courses. Also, that courses are created at the district office level to be shared out to school buildings. And so we'll talk through some examples and we'll get into more details on why that would be. But the purpose of this document, if you would like to use it, again, it's in our documentation and it's in your email. It's called the new course request template. And the purpose of it is for anyone who feels like they need a course created, but either doesn't have the access to do so or it just isn't part of their role, would submit this form to the person or people in your district who do create courses. And that person requesting could fill in all these fields, including the date requested. And you can modify this however you want. You can make it your own, whatever makes more sense to you. But all of these fields, almost all these fields are the required fields in creating a course. And one reason, I'll just start with one reason that we recommend very few people create courses in a district is that simply if not everyone, but if someone in each of your school buildings, say you have multiple high schools, multiple junior highs, if everyone decides to create a new Algebra 1 course this year for next year, then you may have 8 different Algebra 1 courses, in addition to all the algebra versions of Algebra 1 you've had in the past. The idea would be to create one Algebra 1 course at the district office level and share them out to the other buildings. And then the second example I want to give very similarly, but it gets to the same point here, that you need a new course. And let's say that you're now offering a weight training course that wasn't offered this school year, but will be offered next year. So you want to go, or you feel like someone needs to build that weight training course so that it's available to you. What you may not realize working in a building is that that weight training course may already exist in your district and just isn't currently available to your building because it hasn't been used in a little while. And so what this process also does is it allows the person creating courses to search to be sure that the course doesn't already exist and we're not duplicating efforts and duplicating courses, just having, the same course essentially with all the same settings and 2 different course numbers. Just trying to make everything cleaner is the idea here. So that's why this exists. That's a couple of reasons why this exists, and we encourage you to use it. But again, what it boils down to is that that there should be point persons or a point person in your district to create courses. And then in addition, I think that that field is on here, which building, maybe it's not, maybe it is, I can't remember which building it should be. Oh yeah, building to schedule course. Sorry, that is the very first field here, which building it's being scheduled into. So if you work in the high school, you would put the high school. If you needed it available at both middle and high school, you could list both, because availability is something, again, I am going to cover this morning, and availability is really important because if a course has been created but not made available to your specific building, you won't see it in your building. So just keep that in mind. So I want to just take you to the district office level now, because that's where we're going to spend a lot of time in this first hour here. So I'm going to click district office in my train environment. And the way to find your courses menu is under district management and courses and programs and courses. Now, as most of you know, there's a shorter, quicker way to get there, but I like to do what we've historically called the breadcrumbs through the menu first, and the first time we do that. So I'm going to go through that one more time. I went district office, courses and programs, courses to get to this page here. And you will see that you can select the buildings, and I have a couple of buildings selected, as you can see. I'm going to select another one here. The year of availability and the status of that course. And we will talk through these factors here. So this is the courses menu. I just want to give you a quick peek. And some of the courses I'm going to use as examples are listed here. So I was already doing a search in the past days, making sure I had some courses that were applicable to maybe some situations that you might be needing here. But first, so I do want to talk about, before we dive fully into courses, I do want to let you know that the first thing we recommend this time of year. Now, this pertains to not only scheduling, it's just an important part of the process to get going this time of year. Believe it or not, even though we're only in November 2025 right now, that we are looking ahead scheduling wise to the 26-27 school year. So we do recommend at this point in the year that a district leader or whomever's responsible creates the new year for next school year. We only need a new year created. We don't need the terms built out at this point. We don't need semesters, quarters, and all of those things yet. But what's important to your schedulers is that you build out years and terms. So I do want to show you where that's found as well. The way to do that would be district management, scheduling, years and terms. And I have not yet built out my year-long term here in the district office. So I can go ahead and do that by clicking on new. And I am going to just punch in pretty quickly the four number year-long term and then the 2 number term as well. Plug in those dates. Remember, we're talking about 26, 27. We're not expecting you all to do this at this current moment. Again, this isn't one of those step-by-step trainings. This is just something I want you to think about. If you don't see your next year's term, I would recommend that. That's as part of the course management process. We do want to be able to make your courses available for next year as well. So I am going to, again, just kind of plug in some dates here, make some guesses at my dates. Train environment, not too worried about that date. Okay, so now I have my year-long term in the district office. And again, what that allows me to do is make courses available for the new year. And so for the new scheduling year, because you will eventually, if you haven't already, you may be getting requests from your schedulers who need new courses, or your administrators in the buildings who need new courses created for next school year, and they would have to be made available for the current and the next school year, which I'll remind you of in a little bit here. But I do want to, I want to point out also when a new school year is created, that when a new school year is built, I should say, the courses from the previous year do roll over into this new year automatically until you specifically mark them as inactive. So throughout this process we're going through, all your courses that were available for this current year are now going to be available for next school year, which is typically what we want. But courses can be made unavailable in mass, which we'll show you how to do that. It's in our step sheet as well. And courses can be made available in mass, or all of that can be done individually. Okay. The next piece I want to show you, something for consideration. Again, I am at the district office level, which I'm fully aware that there are several people in this training that don't have district office level access. So this is more for our district office level staff. But there is a setting at the district office level called course settings. I just think it's important for everyone who works with courses to know these things. So district management and courses and programs and course settings. So this is a very brief page, but pretty important one to some users, and you'll see why. So we have 3 checkboxes total on this screen. There's 3 settings on our course settings. I'll only allow new courses to be created at the district office. Note that in my building, in my district, I should say, I have that checkboxed. Therefore, school-only users will not see the new create a new course button in their environment in the school. Okay. And I'll show you that when we go to back to the school here. So if I have that, since I have that checked, my school-only users cannot create new courses. All right, only at the district office, which again is what we recommend as best practice here. All right, the second one, allow course equivalencies to be created and edited at the district office. And so, don't use that very much, so I just keep that checkboxed. And then the third one, do not allow schools to adjust course availability. This I see unchecked a lot. I think that can be okay. So that's a little bit more flexible for some of our districts. So what that means is school within the school building, so your school scheduling staff, if I have that unchecked, my school staff can make a course available or unavailable to their building. So they're not creating new courses because this is checkboxed up here, but they can make a course available or unavailable. That's up to you. I have do not allow turned on. But that's up, and so they won't have an edit button on their available, make available for each course. Any questions so far? No? All right, and I do want to pop over to the high school very quickly in my training environment. And now I'm going to take my shortcut. I have a very similar looking courses menu in the school. And I just want to point out there's no new course button here at the top because of that setting in the school. Go back to the district because I have district office access, use my shortcut here, and I can create a new course. So that's the difference from that course setting screen. All right, so someone in your district is managing that screen. And if they're not, hopefully they will know how to now. All right. Just like I said with this form here, to the same point, you do want to make sure that there's no course like what you're creating already created. And to put that in a slightly less confusing phrasing, I have all of my active, inactive, unavailable checkboxed. And again, I will talk through what that means here in a bit. But I have that. So basically, everything that is in the system should show as I search for it. So I'm thinking about creating a new course, and I always pick something that, in this training, that's just something you probably wouldn't have. And so looking for something called basket weaving, or maybe I just do part of it just to make sure that there's nothing quite like it. I would do some different variations. I just want to be sure that there is, nothing in the vein of basket weaving that maybe I could be using for this new course that we're using for next year. So just think about that from a course creation standpoint, that, again, you don't want to duplicate courses if you can avoid it. If it's the same settings, you can use the course from the past and just make it active again. All right. But let's say that we are certain that we need a new course here. So I'm going to click onto new course, which again, in my system is only available at the district office level. And I'm going to jump through these settings a little more quickly in this step here, because when I go back to edit my course, I'm going to talk through them in slightly more detail. And again, the document about creating a new course is also giving you the definition of each of these fields. It's a great document, was created years ago by another team member, and is very helpful to help our users understand what each of these settings is. But I'll start with the basics here. A couple of things about naming and numbering conventions. So we see this in a lot of school buildings, and I just would like you all to keep this in mind. One of our number one recommendations with course creation is consistency in your numbering and naming conventions. We see all kinds of things. I'm sure you have to in your own district, but we see so much more since we work with 80 school districts. And we have found in a lot of cases that as a new staff member comes in, or as multiple people create courses within the district, and they do things a little bit differently or have a different convention for how to name or number them, we're seeing some inconsistencies. Now, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it makes it harder to find the course you're looking for. So years ago, I worked in a district, and we went through a process where you cannot, by the way, you cannot renumber a course. You can't change a course number. And that'll come up again, I'm sure, in this training, but you can't change a course number. So what we did a few years ago is we created a whole new set of courses in a district I worked in with a consistent numbering system. So we basically made a carbon copy of the courses that we needed in that year and for the following year, all included. And then we created those courses, but with the new numbering convention, so that the staff in the buildings and the staff at the district office knew how to find these courses, knew what they were looking for. It was basically like a three-letter, three-number system. And you may have seen that in my prior screen when I did, and I'll use something similar here in this example, but I used ADV 100, something like that, like a three-letter, three-number. You don't have to do it that way. That's just the way we picked. It's kind of always the example I go back to. So as you can see, it starts with the name. So we are going to call it basket weaving here as the name, something unique. There can be several courses in a district and in a school with the same name. There cannot be a course with the same number. Okay. Couple rules about course numbering systems. One is that we do highly discourage you to not use spaces, or from using spaces in course numbers. So some may be inclined to do something like this because it makes sense, or it looks like how a college maybe. I know I see this a lot at the college level. That's maybe how you would see it, but we do discourage heavily putting spaces in there. There are certain reports and sometimes exports and reporting in general, data reporting, that could get messy with those spaces, and so we just avoid it. Speaking of spaces, I'm also going to take this moment to point this out because I see it at least once a year, if not several times a year, and it's just an easy mistake to make. I'm certain I've done it too. When we're typing really fast in any form in PowerSchool, sometimes we go, all right, and you want to kind of tab down and you do this. I don't know if it depends on how closely you're watching me, but I put what I call, this is just my term for it, I put a rogue space at the end. And when I get a case where a user tells me that they created a new course, they tried to schedule it, but they can't find it, this is the culprit a lot of the time. That rogue space. PowerSchool does not like this rogue space. Obviously, it's not intentional. No one would do that with clear intention to do so, but it happens by mistake just in the way that some of us type, myself included. And so you just want to make sure on both the name and the number, you don't want that rogue space on the end or even the beginning. I don't know if I've quite seen it in the beginning. Maybe I have, but we want to avoid any spaces in the course number. Course naming is fine, but again, no spaces afterward. There are certain places in PowerSchool, this course will not show up if you have that rogue space on the end. For example, your course sections page. Why can't I create a course section of it on the live side? Why can't my Power Schedulers schedule it in Power Scheduler? It may be because of that rogue space. All right. So just keep that in mind.
If I could
Sure.
reiterate there, those spaces cause issues in the EMIS world as well. Another best practice is no leading zeros and in the course number, and obviously no commas.
You wouldn't want something like that, right?
Correct. You don't want to waste spaces. For Ohio reporting, there is a limit of 20 characters for a local classroom code. The local classroom code does include the 6-digit building IRN, then the course number, then the section number. So that's, valuable real estate there. If you make your course number so long, then it could cut off your section numbers. So again, just to iterate the things he said, the spaces are very problematic. And leading zeros and what have you. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. You just mentioned a number. Can you repeat that? What's the max number I would want in my course number then? Did you say that?
So you are limited to 14 for the course number and the section number.
And the okay.
Right. So if you typically have 3 or 4 digit section numbers, now you're down to 11 digits for your course number.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, something to think about when numbering.
Yeah, and yeah, I had that in my notes about leading zeros as well, because I've noticed from the core side, as well as, I'm sure the EMIS side sees this, that when we're working with your courses in an export into Excel, it wants to, Excel just wants to get rid of those leading zeros immediately. So it can cause chaos. So we don't use leading zeros. And I like the way you put it, Susan, that you're just wasting real estate as well by adding those extra numbers in there. But so no spaces in the course number, no leading zeros, and you want to limit it to yeah. So sounds like 11 or less, but really, I don't see any reason to have an 11 character course number either. Some do, but there was one other. Well, I'll come back to it if I think of it. So. But yeah, so just some things to think about on course numbers. Any questions about course naming conventions, course numbering conventions so far? If not, I am going to move on. So the alternate course number is not required, but I'll give you a few reasons that I know of from the course side on why you might use that. So this has been used in districts who come over from a different SIS. So if your district came over from a progress book or an infinite campus or some other SIS, you might have the old course number plugged in here. And when you came over to PowerSchool, your district maybe developed a new numbering system for all the courses, but then your alternate course number can point to what the course used to be numbered as. And so that's just one way that might be used. So for the majority of us, probably not going to be a factor. Additionally, if a new course, for some reason, a new course is created, maybe there was a basket weaving 10 years ago, and now we're creating a new course, but there really was, since you had that old basket weaving course, but some reason you're not using that old course, you could plug in the former course number down here. So again, it is optional. All right. All right, so let's talk about available schools, available years. Notice that when I went to create a new course here, by default, and I've seen some creators of new courses get caught in this just inadvertently. Maybe you don't notice. It's going to check all the box for every one of these schools and the electronic building and everything all at once. And you don't necessarily want that. We do recommend as best practice to create the course to make available for only the schools you need them in. So being that we're creating it in the district office, it will be present in the district office, which is of course what we want. But what I want to do is I only want to make it available for the school that I'm scheduling it in. I don't need it in my middle school, intermediate, any of the elementaries, anywhere else, any of these other buildings in my district. I only want to make it available here. So you may work in a district where you may work in an elementary school where you can see high school courses in your building, and vice versa. You may work in a high school that you can see elementary courses in your building. And that's where this comes from, just by making courses available everywhere in the time of creating them. And that's what we recommend against. So it's much cleaner, makes it easier for our schedulers and all school staff when they're working with courses, working with course sections, that they're not seeing a bunch of courses or any courses that they don't ever need to work with. That's the idea here. So again, I've referenced this, I'll reference it again. that's that availability factor. So there is a process, and again, we have a step sheet for making courses unavailable. And so that's a bit of cleanup, that if you are the person in your district who manages courses for buildings, that may be something to consider to not just make your schedulers' lives easier and cleaner, but also avoid courses being used that you wouldn't want a certain building to use. I don't want basket weaving accidentally used at my elementary school, for example. It's never going to be an elementary school offered class. All right. When I create a new when I create a new course, I do want to make it available for both the current school year and next school year. And this is how I can find it as a PowerScheduler user in PowerScheduler. Has to be available in the current and in the future. So that's what it's going to default to here. Now that I've created, you saw me earlier create that new year-long term in the district office. So notice that it's now defaulting to being available for this year and next year. And that's exactly what I want. For this course, I don't have a reason to backdate it to be available in these past years. It's a new course for this year and for next year. Now, some of you might be inclined to say, well, I don't need it this year. I only need it for next year. But we do recommend go ahead and make it available for this year and for next year. And again, just to restate, your PowerScheduler users will not see it available in their PowerScheduler course catalog unless it's available in both. So keep that in mind. All right. So as we go down the line here, so I'll talk through these kind of briefly and then elaborate on some of them a little bit more as we go on. Some of these are more obvious than others. But in the case of this particular course, basket weaving, it is going to be, in my example, a semester-long course, and it's worth a half a credit. Now, there are plenty of classes that you're going to create in your system that aren't worth any credit, but there are some things to consider. Credit hours aren't only applicable to high school graduation credit. That is the primary use of them. That's where you'll see them referenced the most, these credit hours. However, if you calculate GPA and or honor roll using a GPA, then you may need credit hours. And that's usually important to our middle schools. If you use honor roll that looks at a GPA, and then if that GPA is calculated using credit hours, then you may need credit, potential credit, I'll call it right now. Maybe they don't earn credit for their 7th grade social studies and their 8th grade PE, but they need it to calculate out their GPA for their honor roll. All right, so just keep that in mind. That's an important factor here. That if you were newer to the process and you didn't see how all the pieces fit quite yet, I just want to make sure everyone here knows that I'm talking about for basket weaving, kids actually earn the credit if they complete the course. They have potential and they have earned credit if they complete it and pass it. But then your courses that are not for high school credit may still list a credit hours number on there. Max credit hours is fairly self-explanatory, I would say. There are courses such as, maybe PE, physical fitness, art, band, choir, that maybe students can take more than once. I'd probably say music is the number one place I would see this type of thing. And I know in the school I used to work in, it was weight training was another one they could take multiple times, and PE, of course. So you can put a max credit hours. I don't see this used a whole lot, but I could put a maximum credit hours so that once they've, say, taken PE twice for a quarter each, I might plug in a half credit here so that if somehow a student got into a PE class a third time, they would no longer earn credit for that course. CIP code, SIP code. This is for career tech centers, career tech courses at a career center. And so you can, and then you can see a couple of options here. Vocational class would be checkboxed for our career centers for a career tech course. But most of our schools that aren't career centers wouldn't be worried about this here. Credit type. There is some confusion surrounding credit type among some users, and I understand why. So again, after the first hour, we're going to have Susan cover the Ohio State reporting information, talk about state reporting, why that's important. And so we see these 3-letter codes that are on courses. And sometimes we tend to lump them all together, but there is a difference. So I just want to make this clear. If it's above the blue line, it's for core reporting. If it's below the blue line, it's for state reporting. And credit type is a local decision. Note that just like course number, it says no spaces here. I like to put that little note there. But what I'm getting at here is that credit type, since it's a local decision, it doesn't have to match those codes that are down here. Although they do a lot, we do tend to match them just by default. I know we did in the districts that I worked in. It doesn't have to. But what this gives you, you have to have a credit type for students to earn credit on courses at the high school. But it's a way to calculate within groups, let's say, how much they've earned of a certain type, right? Credit type. So typically we would see something like ENG or MT or MTO or something like that. But you can also call out separate types of courses, such as, financial literacy. I know another example that I had at my former district was computer technology. It was a requirement for every student to have. Wasn't a state requirement, but we required it in our building. So we could have called that particular course out with a credit type, and I could call it CT or something like that. And that way, when I'm calculating who needs what for graduation, I can see, Susie has earned her CT credit, whereas David did not. So that's credit type, again, separate from this down here. The default maximum enrollment here, so let's give this I'm going to say this is a fine art type of a credit type, so I'm going to include that here. Just lump, it's going to be, with our musics and with our arts and things like that, we count it as fine arts requirement. Default max enrollment is what it sounds like. So for every course section that is created of this course, what do you want the max number to be that would be in a section? And that is it. It is 24 for that class. But there are some classes that you'd want to default to 5 or 10 or even 40 or 100. A band class, of course, would be a much higher number compared to this, but we have a small basket weaving room, and therefore I want to make sure that there's never more than 24 students in basket weaving.
Yes, David.
All right. Yes.
Before you go any further, there is a question in the chat about the credit type. Is it
Okay.
easier for them to match closely to use in analytics and insights mapping?
I'm
Or
sorry.
they say it is easier, sorry. It was just a comment, I guess, not a
Oh,
question.
okay. It is, okay, someone said it is easier for them to match closely to use an analytics and insights mapping. That's a good
Yeah.
point. And that's
Yeah.
probably the selling point right there for why most
Correct.
of our districts would do that. I know every district I've worked in has matched them, if not exact, pretty closely. So,
Credit type also drives your transcript, which is important.
Yep. Yeah. So on your transcript, a couple of things. It's a lot of our districts have a credit count per subject area, but it's really drawing from credit type to show what's fulfilled. It also makes it appear on your transcript to have a credit type. So there are, there are some really important factors. You would not want to make the decision on your own to change a credit type, by the way. Just want to make that clear. So that is probably a district office decision on what credit type would go with which course. So when a new course is created, you want to have an entire, have the entire team kind of input on what that should be because of the places in PowerSchool, and for the student record, it's going to impact. All right. Let's see, okay. So course notes, this is optional, and you can have course notes if you want, but you don't have to. Course notes is different from a course description. So course description, I'm realizing doesn't show on this page, but when I go to edit the course, it will. So I'll show you that in a bit. But course notes is for internal use only. So admin users would see this, but it's not something that displays for parents and students. So again, course notes, separate from course description. Every course created needs a grade scale. And usually, I'm going to say the majority of our schools would usually default to the default. Now, as you can see in our train database pulls from a local school district, and they have all these different, and you might too, all these different grade scales. So it really depends on, again, this is not something that probably one individual decides simply just picking one on the list. This is probably a very important factor in your district, and because it's going to determine how that class is graded. But every course is going to require a grade scale. GPA added value. This is, it says usually 0 here just because, yeah, if it's a typical regular run-of-the-mill course, basket weaving, even Algebra 1, band, probably doesn't have added value. But this value will add to the GPA as is implied here with the title, right? So we do work with a lot of schools that have added value. So if it's an honors course, an AP course, a CCP course, maybe they add a 1 or a 0.5 into the added value, and that has a huge impact on GPA. So you do want to make sure that's right. But again, the default is 0. And so it just depends on the course and the philosophy of the school district on added value / weighting / course weighting, I'll call it. Storing grades. So to avoid storing blank records, you might have this checkboxed. So I have an advisory course that I showed you that I created recently in this district because maybe my building's offering, or not offering, but requiring an advisory course for every high school student next year. We're going to plug them all into an advisory first thing in the morning, but I don't want that to be a stored grade. So when I go to store grades each quarter, I don't want a line on the historical grade screen for ADV 100 to have a blank. So in that case, I could exclude from storing. So we see that on things like advisory and lunch courses, of course. So you may be looking through your historical grades, for example, and you may be wondering, why is there a stored blank for lunch class every quarter in last year or in history? And that would be why. So that when the grades were stored by default and this wasn't checkboxed on that course, you're storing blanks, and you may not want to. So there are some implications for this, though. So you do want to be careful. I'll just give you an example of something I had to learn the hard way many years ago. And that's if you are wanting teachers, homeroom teachers in your elementaries to put in comments, and you exclude that homeroom from the stored grade, it's also not going to store the teacher comment for that specific section. So that's just one implication that you need to think about when you exclude. But one could argue that something like lunch will never need a grade or a comment, and therefore lunch is probably safe to exclude from storing. So just different types of examples to think about. But if you're seeing a bunch of blanks on a student historical grade record and that bothers you, you can go back to the course and just exclude from here on out. Okay. All right, and the next few are also excludes here. So, you know, I'm realizing that now I'm going through these in detail. So I didn't do exactly what I said I was going to do, but this needs covered anyway. So we'll just go for it. I was going to go back to the advisory course and do this, but I'm taking care of it now for you. So exclude from GPA, class rank, honor roll. All these are fairly self-explanatory, I'm going to guess. So probably an art course, fine art course is going to be included, right? It's a typical course. Kids can take it at the high school. You want it to calculate into GPA, rank, be considered with rank, and count in their honor roll. But this is the way that you'd exclude it. I'm not going to say that all courses are an all or nothing on these three settings, but they are very related. So usually, a lot of times, if it's excluded from GPA, it'd probably be excluded from rank and honor roll. But not necessarily. I'm sure there's exceptions that maybe you can even think of. But yeah, that's how you so we do come across that sometimes in cases on our team where a course was accidentally excluded from GPA, or maybe it wasn't excluded, but it should have been. And there are ways to find that out. We did a GPA's Power Hour back in the fall, in October, or maybe September now. That talked about that and how to find that information. So if I was looking for a student record and wondering why their GPA is a little off from what I expected, there are ways to investigate that. So I'd highly recommend you going back and watching that Power Hour if you're not able to attend that. But yeah, this is where it begins on a course, whether it's included or excluded. We don't typically use the course for lunch option, so we recommend skipping that. This is one I want to focus on for just a moment. I just want to point something out here. Several years ago, the Meta PowerSchool team developers created a customized transcript and shortly after a customized report card. This is a core like all of these, is a core PowerSchool option, a core PowerSchool checkbox. So what they're referring to here, this is a little confusing for many, and I understand why. They're referring to the core object report cards, and transcripts. No one on this call is using those. However, what it doesn't say on this setting is student schedules. So by doing this right here, it will not exclude it from your Meta report card. It will not exclude it from your Meta customized transcript, but it will exclude this course from a student schedule. So just keep that in mind. If you want a course excluded off of a report card or off of a transcript, you would do that in a different place, and one of which I'm going to show you this morning. So just think of it this way. Think of this as student schedules or object reports in general in PowerSchool. And so if I exclude it here, it will not appear on their schedule. So there are courses that you may not want to appear in a student schedule. Like if you have some kind of holding course for your own tracking, for your systems tracking that you don't need to appear, then you can checkbox it here. Just know that this setting here is not preventing it from appearing on a report card or a transcript. All right. I do see the question in the chat. Going back a little ways, I'm sorry I missed that. I have department after default max enrollment. Is that something unique to my district? To be honest, to the person who asked that question, I expected that. I had it in my notes. So no, I would not say that's unique to your district. When I go to edit a course, that will be an option to change the department. It's just not on this initial course creation page. You're welcome. But yeah, I'm glad you asked. I mean, if anybody has any questions while we're going along here, please do ask. All right, so that's a little bit about this. Obviously, I'm not going to check that box for the reasons I stated. I am going to skip all EMIS information at the moment because I'm going to let Susan field that in a little bit here. Okay, so this is an option that some states use that we're not required to use. So this is, we don't even have them defined in our train database. So that's why it's saying that. Otherwise, I think there'd be a checkbox there to use or not. All right. Okay. So I do want to take you through now that I've gone through creating a new course. Oh, yeah, I better go ahead and submit. So what I used to do in a district is, since EMIS was not my forte, and still is not, I would create the course in partnership with my EMIS person. And I worked in a small school district, by the way, so this was a little bit easier to field for us. There was just, me creating courses and she was doing the EMIS side. We'd partner together. We'd get on the phone and I would say, all right, I created the course. I submitted, and then she would go through either with me or separately, and she would do the EMIS pieces for me. So the change has been recorded. Now I have a basket weaving course in my district office that's shared out to the high school. Okay. All right. So again, different ways to handle this depending on the district. We just, again, can't recommend it enough that there's a small amount of people actually creating courses, and then working with the state reporting or EMIS coordinator on those EMIS pieces, which we'll get to in just a little bit here. All right.
Stephen, there was one other question in the chat.
Oh,
Can we
okay.
edit the course number if we have some created with spaces?
No, you cannot edit a course number. So at this point, it is what it is for that course. Now, what, again, kind of harkening back to something that I did in a district years ago in partnership with the Meta PowerSchool team at the time, is we renamed the courses and renumbered the courses. And it's not what it sounds like. We didn't renumber what was there. We created new courses in the system, and we made the old ones inactive for the following year and the new ones active for the current and future years. So by renumbering, what I mean is we created them anew without the spaces. Now, Susan, I'd be interested to hear what you have to say, but I would say if you have, a lot of our districts have course numbers of spaces. We recommend against it. It does happen. If it's working for you, I'd say that's okay. I don't know that there's a reason we need to redraw and create a whole new course catalog for you. But Susan, do you have any input on that?
I would agree.
Okay. Yeah, we see it. We just moving forward, we're going to continue to say no spaces in course numbers, but it does happen. Good question. Thanks for pointing that out. Okay, so in terms of availability on courses, I'm going to back up here and I'm going to walk you through availability on courses a little bit here. And so one thing I haven't talked about these filters yet, and I do want to talk about these. So we have 3 different status of a course. We have active, we have inactive, and we have unavailable. So the active are what they sound like. They're active in a building, active in the current year, whereas inactive are not active in that year or building. Unavailable are no longer available anywhere. So if I have unavailable and inactive and active checked, I'm currently looking at every course in history, right? But what I might want to focus on is my active and inactive here. So, but that status, and then you can add a filter, you can have a name, you can search by name, you can search by number, and you can, and then you can sift down to your courses that way. All right. And you may be wondering, because I am too, why that course that I just created isn't showing up. Let's see here. All right, I'll have to come back to that one. I just created it. But what I do know is that my ADV class is, I'll investigate that one after I'm done with my part here. That ADV class is showing the one that I created recently. And I made it active in the middle school and the high school. But I did want to show you Let's see if I can get some more courses here. Let's do name, advisory. Okay, there we're back to my original search now. So I did want to show you again how to make courses unavailable and available. And so to edit availability, we're going to click into a specific course if you want to do it individually. So I can click into a course. And I will talk through some more of these. I'll kind of skip around this next set here. I'll talk through some of these parameters. But I wanted to point out this availability tab. So by default, when you go into a course, it starts you off on the general tab. And there are several others, but I'm going to skip over to availability, the other most important piece here. And I can see that this advisory class that I created is available for the high school and the middle school for the current year, but I've only made it available for the high school for next year. Now my browser is doing this thing where it's stretching it out a lot. Yours may be doing the same. Typically, this line is very short, and I can see the edit button, but I just noticed that I just had to slide over here. So in this case, let's say that I need to make this single course. I'm only talking about a single course right here, advisory, available for next year in the middle school as well. So I can edit, and it doesn't look like I created it in a way to make it available for the middle school. So I'll have to backtrack a little bit. But it is available at the high school for both years right now. I did want to show you how to edit availability though on a set of courses. And so notice this button down here that's grayed out. I don't have the option to edit availability for schools and years on multiple courses because I don't currently have any selected, but I can select multiple courses here, 2 or more, and then I can edit availability for those courses. So from this screen, you've seen a very similar screen a little while ago, but what I'm doing is I'm either making a group of courses available or unavailable for a set of years and a set of buildings, or a building, let's say. So I want to make sure that these courses are available for the current year and next school year in the middle school, because these are middle school advisories. So I had years up here, I have buildings down here, and the association type, make available or unavailable. Now, for all I know, because I didn't specifically look at this before I did this, for all I know, these may already be available at the building I need them. So when I click make available, that may be my result. So courses affected, 5, years affected, 2, 1 building, associations to be added are 0. The reason is that these courses have already been made available here. Now, if I do the opposite, make unavailable, associations to be removed does change to 5. So I'm making them unavailable. Now, I don't really want to do that. I'm not going to do that even in my train environment. So I'm going to skip that. Okay. But that is how to make a set of courses available or unavailable. And you've also seen how to make a single course available. I do want to point out again that we have this document with a step sheet that has been updated with current screenshots on doing just that. So that the steps I just walked through, from making the year and term at the beginning to going through and making courses available or unavailable. All right. Okay, we have a question on the course setup. How do you export out CIP code or CIP code? I don't see it in DDA for courses. That's a good question. I'm going to write that one down, and I will do my best to find you an answer on that because I'm not sure what field that points to. But excellent question. let me get back to you on that one. All right. Okay, so let's look at an example course and talk through just a couple more factors. We covered the majority of them when I created that course, but there are a couple other things. So note that when I go to edit a course, so now let's talk about the possibility of maybe editing a course at the same time. I just want to point out that, again, you cannot change a course number once it's been designated. We do occasionally get a case from users. Hey, I created this course on accident. I need to delete it. And as you've probably heard some of us say on our team before, delete is a dirty word in PowerSchool. We don't like to delete. You don't want to delete data. And I will say, if a course has ever been scheduled, if a course has ever had students enrolled into that section, you cannot delete a course. But occasionally, sometimes this time of year even, sometimes in the summer, whomever's creating courses creates a new course in your district. But maybe they, had a typo in the course number, and obviously you can't change it. Or they realize that they already had that course created in the system, and they duplicated it, all right, with maybe a slightly different course number. If you just created it and you've never used it for anything, we may be able to help you remove that course. So that's just something to keep in mind. It's not something we encourage. It's not something that I am encouraging currently. But if you just created it and you've never used it, you never built a section of it, that's a different story. Contact us. Great question. I see one in the chat, and that's exactly where I'm going next. Course names, slightly different story here. You can change a course name. So there are reasons that you would change a course name. And notice what this button implies up here. So course information is specific to a school year. And so course names may change year to year. It's not going to change the student's record on their transcript because the transcript is pulling stored grades. So in the case of, I'll think of an example, advanced algebra 2. And you realized that you didn't want the word advanced on there, but students already had stored grades, or maybe a year ended and it was on their transcript. You can change the name of that course, but if you do it mid-year, so let's talk about right now. Grades have already been stored for advanced algebra 2 for first quarter. Now you want to just simply call that section or that course Algebra 2 instead of advanced. The grades are not going to align on the historical grades page, and it's going to appear differently on the transcript now. So there are some factors to consider. What we'd recommend in that case, in the rare instance it happens, if you need to change a course mid-year, we've had this a couple of times, it does happen. I'm certain there's good reasons for it at times. Board decisions are made and sometimes handed down, and that's just the way it is sometimes. But think about the grades that have been stored with that name already, and you may be talking about changing data. For example, in the case of that advanced algebra 2 that was stored in first quarter, if you're changing that course number to algebra 2 now on November 20th, are you then going back and changing the stored grades for advanced algebra 2 to just algebra 2? Because that's what we're going to recommend. And there's a little bit of a process there that you'll need our help with. So just keep that in mind if you're changing course names mid-year. Very rare, but more than likely, we will say if you can hold off until the end of a school year after all grades are stored, because we do get this question in scheduling on the Power Scheduler side. Hey, we're changing this course name slightly. We used to call it computer tech, but now we're adding a couple acronyms onto it or something, onto the name. Well, in that case, if you can wait until the end of the school year after grades are stored, final grades are stored, we would say then make the change, and now it's good for the following year. But as you can see, you can technically, it's almost too easy, in my opinion, to change a course name here. which again is my selling point over and over again for why this should be limited to only certain users creating courses and editing courses.
And
right, so
also remember, if you're changing a course name, are you changing anything else? Is it a different, worth different credit hours? Is it a different subject code? In those cases, you shouldn't, you've got to create a new course rather than change the existing. Would you agree, Stephen?
I would agree.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's where, again, we would recommend go ahead and create a new course. And this happens again during Power Scheduler season frequently, where there's some things about the way we're scheduling or some things about a class that are changing next year. You can create a new course. You can call it the same thing. They'll both, yes, they will both be active in the current year, but then you will inactivate the old for next school year. So once the school year ends, you won't see the old anymore, and you'll only see the new with the new setup. So there are selling points for that. I mean, well, and not just a selling point, as Susan pointed out, if other things about the course are changing, then you have to create a new course. So just make sure you reach out, depending on whether you think it might be course side or EMIS side. Your district leader or your EMIS person should reach out to the appropriate team member on the meta side if you have any questions about that.
And Stephen and Susan, correct me if I'm wrong. If you do change a course name and you have other kids, even graduates, that come to pick up a transcript, it's going to be that new name, not the old name that it was. Is that correct?
No, it pulls from stored grades, so it's
It
looking at
does?
the the
Okay, good.
transcript's
That's
looking
good
at
to
the
know.
stored grades. Yep.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So course description I referred to earlier, and I'll refer back to it now. Different from course notes. I said that course notes is for internal use only. Course description is going to be what, if you wanted to track this in PowerSchool, a lot of our districts don't, some do. You could plug in your course descriptions from your course guide that, you may have a PDF or a paper, still paper copies, I'm not sure, of course descriptions for each of your courses. You can plug those in here. And the largest advantage I've seen to putting them here is that when a new Power Scheduler course catalog is created, all right, so when your schedulers at the secondary level who use Power Scheduler, when they go to schedule for the year, if they have their students use the online request screens through the public portal, this course description will display there, and you may want that. So it could be helpful for your students and parents in making decisions. Just another reference point for them, but that is up to you. The reason I specify, and this is getting a little into the weeds for our non-Power Scheduler users, so I'll just keep it brief. We do encourage our Power Schedulers to reuse the old course catalog. So that's why I say if you plug in all these course descriptions right now, and they're already using a current course catalog, it's not going to bring those over, okay? So there would be a little bit more to that process. So just keep that in mind. Again, I don't really want to get into the weeds. Our Power Schedulers on the call, if you have questions about that, please bring them to us if you'd like to plug in course descriptions. On the other hand, on a brighter note, maybe, we have had a couple of districts reach out these last couple of years, and they wanted to plug all these course descriptions in, but no one, and I mean no one, including myself, want to go to each of the courses in our entire district and either type these in or copy paste them from a doc. There is a way that we can help you update these via a spreadsheet import. So please reach out if you decide that, hey, we want to plug in course descriptions on a bunch of our courses. If you have a course number, course name field on a spreadsheet and a course description field along with that in a spreadsheet, we can help you update these. We've done that for a couple districts more recently. So just keep that in mind. Again, not everyone's doing that, but Okay, so I am going to skip a little bit here in the interest of time, but also because I've already gone over these things. So I'm going to skip down to what we haven't seen yet. Program codes. This is rare. I don't see this used. This is if you were setting a program code specifically on a course. So the program codes, the majority of them are for state reporting, but we do use program codes in the scheduling world to get students into the right sections of courses. And when we do that, we encourage that to be set on the sections themselves, not on the course. So that's why I don't know that I've ever seen a program set on a course before. We've talked about credit type and default max enrollment, and then we had a question in the chat about department earlier. So department, I'm going to click associate and I'm going to show you why. So departments are specific to a school building. And therefore, I'm in the district office and I clicked on associate to department. I have no options. But when I created this course, I did hop over to the school building and then I set a department of guidance on it. So that's how I did that. I just wanted to point that out to avoid confusion. So if you wanted to put a department on a course, you can do so from the school side. It's not required. A lot of our buildings aren't even using departments on courses, but some reasons that you might would be potentially rooms if you have departments that are specific to rooms. And in the scheduling process, courses can work with rooms based on department. You can mark you can set a room to use departments and they would match the courses in that department and try to get those courses into those rooms, scheduled into those rooms in the build process. So again, more power scheduler lingo that may not apply to everyone in the room, but that would be a selling point for departments, which again, we're not really encouraging and we're not saying that most of you use departments anyway. The other would be for teacher recommendations, and only if you use teacher recommendations for courses that are specific to department, which, to be honest, the majority of our users are not using. Hardly any. All right, so subject area, this is an optional field that you can use. So I don't see that filled in too often, but we do have some districts who are using that as just another field to search. Again, this is not the core area code down below the EMIS line here. This is a different thing. I talked through course notes already. Exclude from attendance. I do want to talk about this one. This is very important. The only ones are really courses like if you are using a placeholder course or an identifier or something that truly is not, it's not an actual place that a student goes. It's just maybe a holding course to say, student is in, baseball this season, basketball this season, probably more appropriate for the time of year. You can mark that to exclude. It's not obviously counting in that student's attendance. Just case management, sport, something like that. Those are the types of courses that you might just mark for not using in attendance. So again, kind of a rarely used field there. You would want most courses are included in attendance, right? I talked through storing grades, grade scale, GPA added value excludes, all of this good stuff. Remember that this setting pertains to the student schedules. Keep that in mind, which brings us to this next piece. The meta report card has its own set of settings per course. And I wanted to point this out because this did not appear when I created the course. Once I create the course, I have to come back over here. If you didn't want a course to show up on the meta report card, then you could exclude that here. And I know there's reasons why you might do that. And so I just wanted to point that out. Excluding from standards is a separate setting here. And then in terms of how you want it to display that specific course on your meta customized report card, these settings here. All right. This is probably a rarely used one, the homeroom indicator I kind of glazed over. But if you wanted to set this as the homeroom course, it will display in the right place, in the appropriate place on your report card. All right, so let me check my notes here. I think, let's see. I just want to make a couple other comments before I turn it over to Susan. I think I went a little bit over on my time. I apologize for that. I want to leave plenty of time for Susan as well to talk through Ohio State reporting. These other tabs, so any standards associated with the course will appear here. Obviously, there are none with my high school advisory course, but then it also links out to your standards page from this setting here. Some of our districts use PowerSchool fees, and you would find that at the school level. But a lot of you are using a third-party vendor for your fees, and so this may not be applicable to you. Prerequisites is going to be something that's much more applicable at a secondary level. So when I've referenced Power Scheduler, I'll just come back to that for a moment. A prerequisite note can be made here, and that will appear on the student. That will also appear on a student's online request screen. But if you build any prerequisite rules, so notes and rules are separate. If you build any prereq rules on a course, it could restrict the ability for a student to select that course in Power Scheduler or in the public portal in the online request screens. So the note is basically a message that could be helpful to helping students and parents make decisions. A rule is restrictive. So just pretty different, but pertaining to the same idea. And that's what I have for course building, course creation on the course side. Does anyone have any questions before I turn it over to Susan Payne? And I'm gonna look up my basket weaving course and figure out where the error of my ways here while you know we're going here. Okay, someone requested a quick break. Yep, that's a good idea. Let's take a 5-minute. So we'll come back at 10:28. And please, again, if you think of any questions when you get back, pop those in the chat or unmute at 10:28, and we'll address those. And we'll be back. Thank you. All right, it is 10:29, so we're going to get back to it. And I did want to, so I'm going to share my screen real briefly here because I'm going to turn it over to Susan. I realized the error of my ways. I just wanted to point out that apparently I didn't have the right school selected since I had only created the school available to the high school. I forgot about this little filter up here. When I searched it with the high school selected, of course, my course is ready to go. So I apologize for that mistake. Just wanted to correct myself there before we move on. But I'm going to hand it over to Susan now.
Good learning point. I'm sure we'll all do that. Okay, first I want to thank Core for allowing me to join and, to help reiterate for districts the importance of your reporting, exactly, what it impacts on the state reporting side. I often get comments of, I had no idea that would impact what it has. So I wanted to start by talking, you can see my screen okay, right?
Yep.
Okay. I wanted to start by talking about the top section and what's important to EMIS up here. We do pull the course number for state reporting. We also pull the course name for, some troubleshooting in reports. So those are two very important things. And as we talked about, not having spaces, not having commas, things like that, leading zeros, things like that is very important to make your reporting go as smoothly as possible. You can see in this example, again, this is a trained database. They do have a course number with a leading zero, and it is working. We don't recommend it. Again, you're just using up real estate for no reason. But it's not necessarily a reason for you to revamp everything, but going forward, you may want to discontinue that practice. The other thing it pulls is credit hours. Stephen talked about that and how lots of districts use this for their middle school for maybe athletic eligibility or for honor roll or, numerous things. It is important to know if they don't actually get high school credit. There's a process at the end of the year that you can request from the core team to remove that credit earned so that it doesn't distort reporting when the student goes into the high school building. Just a tip, if you will, there. Another thing that is important is the grade scale. Now that ODU collects grades on an ongoing basis, this can impact that grade reporting. We don't necessarily pull this, but when it pulls from stored grades, it does look to the grade scale. For instance, if this AP grade scale did not have let's say a W code, and they stored a W because the student withdrew from the class, if this grade scale didn't have a W, then you'd get an error in your EMIS reporting. Another tip maybe would be to use the course for lunch. It is not required. However, it does give a verification point for you. It's very important that if it is the lunch course, and we need it reported differently for EMIS so that when a student has a partial day absence, it takes that time slot out of the calculation. So we suggest you use a verification point, and you'll see why here in a minute as we go down through the Ohio stuff. So that being said, I do have a handout, and I will give that to Stephen to post for you guys so that you will have that for the future. But I'm just going to kind of talk through it rather than read it to you. It is very similar to what I've done the last couple years. There are a few changes, but for the most part, we're just going to talk through the EMIS pieces and their meanings and what their impact. So first, of course, would be the exclude from EMIS course reports. Study halls, would get checked with this. Lunch obviously would get checked with this. there's numerous reasons that this can get checked. But if a student is receiving high school credit, this should not be checked. Anything that you are granting high school credit for, you need to be reporting to the state. That includes CCP. That's always a big question there. But that box should only be used for, as I said, for instance, study hall lunch, things like that. The educator search and certification and licensure search, these have been redirected. They still work. If you click on them, they go to the ODO page that then moves you on to a new page. We are in process of updating those links, just an FYI there. Then it's important to note that anything below here can be overridden at the section level. So as we talk through these, districts have learned that perhaps they created a separate course for things they might not have had to. So we'll talk to those. The first one is the CTA CBI course / no students. This is used frequently for EMIS when, for instance, they're in the second semester of course reporting and the student, there are no longer students in the course in the second semester, so they may have to change this to yes, so that the course continues to pull even though no students are in it the second half of the year for whatever reason. The subject code can be selected from the subject code list. Very important to note that these are controlled at your district. You choose, for instance, when ODO releases new subject codes, you can choose to put them in your code list or not. I'm going to have some tips on down here as to how to keep that cleaned up and how to make it as efficient and effective for your district as you can. The course level is only to be used when the course has different levels for that subject code. So for instance, this one is a Spanish. Obviously there's one Spanish code. So that's where a course level would be needed to say this is Spanish 1, Spanish 2, Spanish 3, or, this is an AP Spanish, so it's an advanced. That's what this course level is for. This is not for, this is my third year in art, but it's a different subject code. That's not the purpose of this course level, and that gets confusing, I think, for people. Semester code, again, these in the dropdown are controlled by the Ohio Department of Education. So these are your available options. So these should be appropriate to exactly what the course is being offered. Lots of districts issue credit at the semester, so perhaps they would have semester 1 classes and semester 2 classes, and they give half credit at each. Others do all year and they only grant the credit at the end of the year. So, this is saying what the course runs. And again, this can be overridden at the section level. So possibly you would have, let's say this AP course runs full year for Spanish. So you could say it was an all year course and you'd have a Y1 grade. You could also say, I'm going to store my grades and give credit at the semester. So I'm going to set them all up as semester 1 courses at the course level. And then at the section level, the ones that are second semester, you would change this field for the second semester courses only, because it would override what the course says. Okay. Length of instruction. Yes.
I'm sorry, Susan. I just want to just kind of echo what you said also with that semester code, because that's something that we've noticed over the years is missed from the course scheduling side, in that and causes some confusion. So again, if you're, I just want to clarify, Susan. So if I have
Sure.
an Algebra 1 course that's split into two separate sections, I have Algebra 1 and my kids take in first semester, but they also take Algebra 1 for a second half credit in the second semester. Those would be clear. It would be the course would be set for semester 1, but the
Correct.
second semester sections are set for semester 2 on that semester
Correct.
code. So someone has to go in and do that, before the school year starts? Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. And I think
It
that's
may
being
even
missed.
need to be maintained, Stephen. Sometimes, we have to do with what's needed by our students. So maybe we didn't originally set up a semester 2 course, but we had so many kids fail, we're going to have to, pivot and offer it second semester. So it
Yep.
wouldn't be a one and done, I would say, but
Mm-hmm.
typically it would be done at the beginning of the year, but then maintained as well in case, courses change at semester or offerings change.
So our EMIS coordinators really need to be in tune to how our schedulers are scheduling in the buildings
Correct.
to help keep up.
Very
Okay.
good point. Yes. Yep. Okay, your length of scheduled instruction is actually, the length of time that students are in the course. If you have a 40-minute course and it's for one semester and your semester is 90 days, you do the math and this is the length of scheduled instruction. Typically 120 hours is worth one full credit. 60 hours is worth half credit. Phys ed would be the exception to that. 60 hours is only worth a quarter credit. So, you can use your credit up above, the semester code, the length of instruction, all to make sure everything's lined up the way it should be. If this is a full credit course, unless you're block scheduled, typically that would be an all year course. So that's something to think about there. Okay. The location IRN typically is, the location where the course is being held. There are some, exceptions you should read for that. CCP, JVS satellite, preschool, things like that, that you may want to read up in the manual as far as that location IRN. The subject area for credit. So this is pulled for staff course reporting, and that merely says this is the subject area for credit that we are offering this course. Notice the words for credit. If this is not for high school credit, this is not needed. It is only used if you are granting high school credit. So all your elementary courses do not need this field. This field can merely be blank or not applicable, either way. But it's important for course reporting, for grad reporting, all that this is only filled in if the course is offered for high school credit. Language used for teaching the course, pretty self-explanatory there. Curriculum, again, these are driven by ODU guidance on what is current, and we keep those up to date for state compliance. Delivery method, much the same. Educational option, the same. Student population, the same. This is huge for teacher certification and licensure. If you have a special ed teacher, you have a special ed class, it's very important that these are marked appropriately in the student population for the certification to flow correctly, and as well as gifted and preschool other things. So typical classes are just regular, but those exception classes, you need to make sure they are reported correctly. Then we come to the core area code. And I know this is confusing, guys. You have credit type up above, you have subject area up above, then you have this subject area for credit down below, and now we have the core area code. So the core area code is what is pulled for graduation once the credit is issued. So would these be the same? For the majority of the time, they would be the same. We offered it as a foreign language credit. When the kids earn it, they get a foreign language credit. Each district is different. You know, there have been cases where they've proven to me that these may not match. But it's important to know that the core area code, again, is only needed for high school credit. So this is saying once they've earned the high school credit, you know, what area should that apply to? And this is for graduation reporting. This is for progress toward graduation reporting, to make sure that students are fulfilling the graduation requirements in the credit area, different credit areas. Credit flexibility is merely a yes or no field. Again, it is for staff course reporting. The teacher licensure and staff provider IRN. These are important if perhaps your district, let's say they contract with the ESC for a teacher. So your teacher is not paid by your district, they're paid by the ESC. That would be an instance where you would have the ESC's IRN in here. And again, this helps staff course reporting so that when that IRN is in there, then the state looks to the ESC to find the staff information that should be associated with this course, their pay amount, days absent, all those things, okay? Dual credit, very important for your CCP courses. Get the question a lot of, I can't put the dual credit amount in. Well, the field doesn't come up until you say, yes, it is dual credit. And then the credit hours come in here. Important to note, these are the credit hours issued by the college. Up top is the credit hours they get for the high school course. This is the number of credit hours that they get at the college. So typically your full credit courses, high school credit up top would be 3, 4, sometimes 5 college credit hours. So that's the number that would go in here, and you can just type it, you know, however you want. And that is what drives the dual credit that goes to your CCWMR, your tracking of, does your school prepare students for life after high school? If they get 12, if they earn 12 credits, college credits, you know, you get a bump up to your district saying you did a good job, you've got them prepared. So this is very important that these are set up correctly on the course so that they flow clear through when the student earns the credit for this course, clear through to the state. Block scheduling, we don't have a lot of schools on block scheduling anymore, but this is very important if you do. What this will drive is the block scheduling will help determine for your pre-IDs. Obviously, if you have a block scheduled course, you complete it in one semester, so you would need to test on it in the fall. So if you have a block scheduled course and you don't have it marked here, they won't pull into the pre-IDs. This also can impact CRDC reporting, which is biannually. Exclude from FR reporting. This, again, would be rare, but you can say, you know, these course grades should be excluded from reporting to the state. Again, I've had a few schools give me use cases, but they're very far and few between. You know, possibly this section or this course was set up as an audit only or something, you know, that maybe this would be checked, but this is a rare occasion that you would need that. And here's the very important box I talked to you about for lunch. So this box right here is what tells the system when you enter a partial day absent, it tells the system that the time block that this course is scheduled in is not educational and can be removed from the absence time. For instance, I have a 6.5 hour day. I have a 30-minute lunch. You know, obviously, it's not that clean. Usually you have a 6 hour and 43-minute day, and you have a 21-minute lunch or whatever. But if this is checked, then that the amount of time in your bell schedule that this course is in will be deducted so that it can properly calculate the missed time if a student should leave before, after, or during lunch. The reason that I said you could use the checkbox up here for lunch, so now you have a checks and balances. I can run all my courses that I check the box up here to make sure I have the box down here checked. So it just gives you a second point. And as you noticed, when Stephen created this course, this box was there and available, you know, and then the state stuff can come after. So it just gives you a checkpoint to say, you know, when I create this course, it is going to be used for lunch. Did someone go back in and check this instructional time? If your partial day absences are not working correctly, it may be because your lunch courses don't have this checked. So that will be a troubleshooting area for you as well. ODU did away with the CTE college credit. That's why it's been moved to obsolete for FY26. And then the final line is for CRDC only. That is a biannual thing. It's a huge data pool that you can identify courses as credit recovery courses here so that they pull correctly for CRDC reporting. So let's go back to my presentation. So basically, here is just explanations, refers to the EMIS manual for you to see that. One thing I did want to point out, the dual credit. A very good checkpoint for that is to go to, there is a CCP module within ODEX. There is a course export that you can export the courses and easily check your course to the college to make sure you have the proper credit, you know, identified on the courses. I had a district just this year thought an art course was worth college credits, and it turned out it was 4. They had several students with 11 points for their CCWMR, and when they compared this and saw, oh my goodness, that one is worth 4 points, they got several kids up 12 by changing, and then, you know, got their bump up on their report card. So, you know, you don't ever want to assume college credit when you can verify it through the CCP module. Just another checkpoint to make sure that your district is getting all the credit due them. You don't want to miss these things and not bump up on your local report card just because of a data element that didn't get checked or didn't get coded correctly. So that's an important thing to remember. So I think I'll pause before I go into the next and check chat here if I can.
Yeah, we do have some questions.
Okay. Okay.
Earlier, when you mentioned grade scale, PowerSchool lets you change the grade scale on individual students on a course dot section. How does that work with the grade scale for the course and reporting?
So as long as the historical grade has the associated course number and section number, it will go to the grade scale you have on that section. Does that make sense? Now, if you hand that grade and you don't put the course and you don't put the section, it can't get to a grade scale. That's a good point. And that is another reason that we do recommend for CCP that you store the grades. When we first started doing CCP reporting years ago, we did not typically store these grades. We just hand entered those, but with grade reporting, it is best to store those grades for CCP. Then you just merely open up that little line, if you will, enter the
Blank
grade
line,
and the credit earned, and everything flows appropriately. If you do not do this before you hand enter CCP grades, you should be looking up the course number and the section number before you hand enter those CCP grades. And we all know that it would be very painful to do. So that's important.
The The other question in the chat was, well, what do we do if that exclude from instructional time attendance is not checkboxed for this year? Should we go ahead and I think the answer is, or I think the question is pertaining to, should they go ahead and do that right now?
Absolutely, they can. They may need to refresh Premier attendance or recalculate attendance to get it to work correctly, but absolutely, they can go in and change that now to make those start working, those partial absences start working as they should, and really help your attendance people out. Good question.
Hmm.
And I think that's it, right?
I think that's it.
Okay. Okay, so now I want to talk about the EMIS changes that were for FY26 and the things that you do control at your district level. I talked about subject codes. New subject codes, if you're not familiar, you can just type code sets in the universal search up top, or it is in the district under system management data to go to code sets. Within code sets, you would then select subject code is the code set, and then you can add a new code. A big one this year was Odoo did away with the 120500, which was broadly encompassing, and they made it more specific to, for instance, band or orchestra, things like that. So this would be an example of a new code. It's the 120510. It's for band, and you can use a start date of this. It's very important that you first search for. I just do a control F and search for to make sure that you're not duplicating subject codes. You might not realize that your EMIS coordinator had already done this, and so you think, oh, that was new, I need to add a new one, and you don't search, you could get duplicates out there, which you do not want. So our best practice, we've told you, is to do the control find, search for the subject code to make sure that it isn't already there, and it may need tweaked, or it may be one that they have brought back, that they discontinued and brought back. So in that instance, all you would do would be to remove end dates or something. But once you hit the submit, then you'll see a green check bar stating that the code was added successfully. So there were three changes, three Odoo changes had impact to subject codes. They either add, change, or remove. Big one was IB courses. All IB courses were removed. There were, I think, 59 of them, possibly. So I just copied and pasted from the Odoo website just to give you a visual of what it looks like, in the EMIS world, but those were the 59 subject codes for IB that were discontinued. So when they are no longer valid, again, you can do the control find, and it will find that subject code, and then you click on the pencil to edit, and you can merely just put an end date in. So when you put that end date in, what that does is remove them from that subject list drop down when courses are being worked on. I had a district the other day where they had merely just put obsolete on stuff from FY11, from years and years and years ago. So, and they were saying to me, I wish I could get them out of the drop down. Well, if you would just end date them, it'll bring them out of the drop down. And then it doesn't impact your historical data because they were good until that date. But this is best practice when Odoo discontinues subject code. As far as if the end date should be a certain date, that's a district decision. It does not matter if you say 6/30 or 7/1. It really doesn't matter. You can even, in this instance, I'll show you, I looked at the Odoo change and I used the date on the Odoo change. So you can do whatever works for you in your district. Just know that this is the date that they can no longer select them, and it will maintain that historical integrity. So anything prior to this will show as expected, and then they cannot select it after this date. So, 6/37/1 might be perfect. If you want to end date at 6/30 of 25, that would mean it could not be used for FY26. Either way would be fine. Some other things that they did, the fine arts section, I touched on this a little bit. They did away with instrumental music and they added ensembles, band, and orchestra. So this will be a big one. If you had your 120 500, those will all need changed to one of the new codes that Odoo has put out. They also sometimes change names. You can see this change, they've done that. It was Media Arts before, they changed it to, or Media Arts Primer, they changed it to Introduction to Media Arts. So when that happens, again, you can do a control find to find the course. You click on the pencil to edit, and then you can change. In this instance, it was Information Technology. They changed it to Introduction to Information Technology. So then you can change the course name that way. Those changes can be found on Odoo's website. So as I stated, you can see the change final date. So on the ones that I use, the fine arts subject code, you could use 8/13 as the date. But again, if you wanted to use 6/30 saying, I don't want to look up every one of these dates, I know that it's, it ended with FY25, I could just put 6/30 in, that's the last date they can use it. That is just your decision. So those were the only changes for 26, the add, change, and deletes that I gave you here. That was all inclusive of their changes. Again, you can choose whether these impact you or not. The IB courses no longer being valid. You may not have ever added the IB courses to you. They might not even be there. So you wouldn't do anything in that instance. These new courses added, there was a lot for CTE. Possibly your school doesn't offer CTE. So do I really want to go through setting up all these courses when my school does not offer any career tech courses? Or I'm a K-8 school, I'm a community school that's K-8 only. I don't even have high school. I don't need all this muddying up my subject codes. So that might be the case for not enter all these new ones. Or perhaps your district's big enough where they want to be all inclusive. I don't offer career tech at this time, but we might consider it in the future. I'm going to keep my thing up to date with Odoo, and I'm going to add this. It's a district decision. Okay.
There's a question in the chat, Susan, and I'm not sure I understand the question. She typed, should end dates be 6/30 XX or 7/1 XX when a code is removed? And I think it was pertaining to what you were just talking about, but I didn't understand the context of that.
Correct. Lots of times in the EMIS world, 6/30 makes a big difference than 7/1, but for these course end dates, it doesn't matter.
Okay, it doesn't matter. All right.
Yes. Yep. Okay. So I wanted to give you some tools to assist you in reviewing your current course data. Several ways you can do this. The first one that I want to talk about is the graduation detail extract. This is different. You can see there's two GC elements here. There's one that is just, and it's very hard to work with. It's what goes to the state, but it'll have a student, and then it just totals up, has 3 English, has 4 science, has 2 social studies, and that's all it tells you. core detail extract actually pulls in every stored grade on a student so that you can analyze and troubleshoot. These are the columns that it displays for you. It actually tells you the year it was stored. This is the dual credit, so this is your CCP, the high school credit associated with it, the course number, and then core area code. It also shows the current grade level. It doesn't necessarily mean that's the grade level when it was stored. We get some questions about that. It gives you the last name, first name. I've removed them just for you for this, for reasons, I don't want to display student info. So I removed them just for this, but you will see them in your extract. So some things that you will want to correct and fix and look at. First thing I always tell them is for ERR. Typically these are entered courses. You can see they don't have any course number. And the person just forgot to enter the core area code. These do not get reported to the state at all. They don't go into electives. They don't go into anything because they don't know what bucket to put them in. They don't go anywhere. So this is very important that you get these cleaned up. As you can see, there are some course numbers here. So that would, definitely you want to look at these course numbers, and 9 times out of 10, they just forgot to do the GC, that bottom core area code on the course. They just forgot to select anything. Get it selected, select it for prior years, and I'll show you how. It will fix every student that has this. You don't have to go by student. Into entered courses, you have to go student to get these fixed. There is an FN element where it shows you the count of graduation credits at entry. This impacts that as well. Once these are fixed, that number will change that's getting reported to the state. So just a friendly reminder for anyone who is hand entering, they can do this at the time they hand enter. You can see here under the Ohio State information, this is the core area code. This is where I'm saying it didn't get entered. You can also enter the dual credit here. If you have a student coming in as a senior and they've got some college credit plus courses from a prior district, you need to report those here. Those still count for you and your district if that student earned a college credit plus to get that bump up on your local report card. So this is a single entry of a historical grade. It is also available on the multiple entry. You can see it kind of runs together a little bit. You can see here's the course and section number, the Ohio State information, and then here's the course and section number of the next one you're entering. So if I'm doing Algebra 1 up here, English 1 here, each one I can enter the core area code, the dual credit. So easiest is to fix it upon entry, but if you have to go back and fix it, then it's one by one to open up the stored grade to do that. We've already talked about storing CCP grades so that you get the blank record, so that all reporting flows as expected there. I'm still seeing schools several years ago, ODU separated out world history. Before that, it was just a social studies other. I'm still seeing schools where SOO is what they've got it coded, and it should be SWH. So you could filter for SOO and then filter for world history, and find, these, and even find subject codes that perhaps updated and should be. You will want to filter for the ELE subject code. Any course coded ELE does not count towards the state minimum of 20 credits. That was new year before last and really wreaked havoc. I had a school that coded every CCP course ELE. So none of those courses were going. towards the state minimum. ELE is appropriate for some school courses, study skills, things like that. ELE is appropriate. So I'm not telling you you should have no ELEs. What I'm telling you is they should be reviewed to make sure they weren't just set up that way in the beginning and need fixed. There were 4 new subject codes last year where they actually added like an English elective, which was huge. Obviously, there are courses, let's say, for instance, journalism, where it really is an English course, but you don't want it to count for the 4 English core requirements. You know, the student still has to take English 1, 2, 3, and 4 to get a diploma. I don't want journalism making it look like they've met their English requirement. So they added 2 each 4 subject area an elective category. So what happens when you code these courses, that is, they come out of the English bucket and go into the elective bucket. These courses, typically, schools had coded ELE. So now we have an ability to label those correctly. Important to check your dual credit. You know, you can filter for course number, course name. You can see on this top line, they have their course name say CCP. So obviously this is a CCP course. So it should have some dual credit. So this will, you know, assist you in, there's an error report that comes from the state, students in elective courses. There's also a diploma possible credit coding errors. Cleaning this up will make those error reports much more and cut down on those. Here again, via filtering, I filtered for Columbus State, OSU, things like that. I can see that the ones that they stored with the course number are coming across correctly. I can see the 3 units, but the hand entered ones didn't get the dual credit entered. Science was another one. They did away with SCA a couple years ago, 23, I believe. So we need to make sure those are coded correctly. I can see this as CCP, but it's chemistry. You know, that doesn't look quite right. Physics, that doesn't look quite right. So this is a way to review those. And then you can see if courses maybe aren't coded correctly and go and fix it on the course. You might even find, this was one I found, a phys ed accidentally got coded SCL on a hand entered. You know, you might even find errors in looking at this report that you can fix. So if possible, it would be very beneficial to do this before you store grades with credit, which typically would be at the semester. Next month or early January, mid-January would typically be when that's done. So any corrections you can do before that will greatly impact, you know, reporting and errors. I see a couple questions. Why would my GC be missing course name? Not sure what GC is. I think that was.
If you can clarify in the chat or take yourself
Yeah.
off mute.
Yeah. Can you share how to get to that report again? I had a student come in and I missed it. So this report, sorry if I'm scrolling, making you seasick here. It is in compliance reports. It's the GC student grad core detail. It's right above the GC student core record extract. You can run it for all students. You can run it for a group of students if you just wanted to check your seniors or something. This is what gets run for graduation credit progress. So I don't know if we had anything on the course name, if you guys wanted to unmute or put more details in the chat.
Try it again. Now try. Susan, this
There we
is
go.
Kim.
Yes.
Grandview.
Yes.
So I pulled my GC record
Uh-huh.
and I don't have course name on my file. It was me that was asking that question.
Okay. So you don't have that column?
Correct. I have core area, but I don't have course name as an option.
Are you sure you pulled the detail extract? That sounds like just the GC record, not the detail extract.
I will make sure. Thank you.
Yes, yes. Thank you. So now that we know what needs to be adjusted, let's talk a little bit about how to do that. So, here I have a world history grade that was entered, no associated course name, course number. So you actually have to open the grade and select the core area code. For courses that need updated, you can, search in the courses. You can search by number or by name. And if you open the course, you can come down and here is the core area code that impacts that. You can also select for prior years, view course info by year. Here I went back to 22, 23, and I could see, this was ELE and I wanted to change that. I could then click on that and change it to ENE, and it would change the stored grades, the historical stored grades for all students with that course would be fixed. So you didn't have to go student by student to change. If you have a course selected, you can do the prior years. I want to make sure to point that out. So to do a full course review, I've had that asked of me a lot. You can go into Data Export Manager and filter. The drawback is you cannot just do current year courses. So within Data Export Manager, I chose the course's core fields and picked the three things that EMIS uses, which is course name, course number, and credit hours. And then I scrolled down and picked all of the Ohio screens. You can see that checkbox here. So that puts those two together. Then you click next and show records, and you can filter here. So, if I wanted to filter things out, obviously, if I was doing a full course review, I probably wouldn't want to filter. I would want to take all 1,300 records and filter them out and export them and filter them after I've exported. So these are merely the screens, what they look like. If you did want to limit it to the current year courses, you could also do an export of the table courses by year and do some conditional format to only look at that. And in my example below, I've done that in Excel. So the pink would be the courses that are for the current year. A big one is state exclude from reporting. This gets marked sometimes in error. As I did it in this example, when I clicked on it, so I can see this is looks like a holding course to me. AM, PM, they go to the Career Center. That's just I think for their own references. So the fact that it might have been excluded from reporting would make sense. Intervention Study Center, kind of makes sense. CCP, full day, perfect. If these make sense to you, you could delete them, because why would you need to check any further if they don't get reported? I don't really need to check any more on those. Unless, like I said, they were marked in error to not get reported. But here's just some other filtering ideas that we had for you. Credit hours are greater than 0 area code. If they're receiving credit, there should be a core area code. Comparing the credit hours to the course hours, typically 120 hours is 1 high school credit, 60 is a half. It's be the exception to that rule. Curriculum PS, which indicates CCP post-secondary courses, but the dual credit you know, either is not marked to yes, or it is marked to yes, but doesn't have an appropriate, had a school the other day where they had them all 1 for 1. They said 1 high school credit and 1 college credit. You know, that can't be right. Core area code, 0 credit hours. You know, if it's got a core area code in there, but they're not receiving credit, you know, that would cause pause. There are several core area codes. I listed them out here for you. I had one the other day where someone had copied credit type down. So credit type, they had one that was just MT for math. So when I saw MT in core area code, I was like, wait, that can't be right. So I just want to do a reasonability check there. Course hours. Anything less than 9 is a credit flex course. So that would be a check you could do there. Course language, anything other than English, is that correct? Subject area, does it align with area? And if not, do you know why? Does it make sense to you? So those are just some examples. You can add and remove as it appropriate for your district. You know, again, this isn't designed or suggested that you have to replace anything you already have in place, you know, for course review. We're just merely adding this as suggestions if you want to do a deeper review, or if possibly you don't currently have a way to review your courses. The data collector is another good source. You can pull the CN file. The CN file is what is going to the state in regards to your courses. Things you could filter for there. Course level. Do I have Spanish 1, 2, 3, and 4? Are the course levels marked as such? You can filter in there for course start dates. If it's the first day of school to semester break, is it coded in as semester 1 course or an all year? Things like that you could filter for in the semester code. The length of instruction. Are there any zeros? Do a reasonability check. I had a district the other day that had somehow got 600 in there instead of 60. You know, when you see 600, it's like, wait, what? So, you know, just a typo, very, you know, easily missed. Location, are your CCPs marked appropriately? Where are they getting that college credit from? That should be in the location IRN. You could do length of instruction to high school credit, 120 hours, but not a full credit. You can see in this example here, they've got several courses, 120, but they're only getting half credit. But when I look at the dates, they're semester courses. So should this be 60? Should these be semester 1, semester 2? You know, you just have to analyze what looks correct and what could possibly need adjustment. Again, these are just a few examples. Crosscheck also has a merged CU file that can be very helpful. It does decoding for us. You know, when I'm at semester code, I might not understand exactly what that is. Or you can see down here the OT. You know, if I have a curriculum code of OT, what does that mean? Well, the description is in there in this merge file, so you know exactly what FF means face to face. You know, things like that. So it kind of decodes for you. So again, this is just a few ways to help you with your course reporting, to help you understand the EMIS ramifications of your course reporting. Hours are particularly important if you have CTE credit, career tech, because teachers have minimum hours and maximum hours they have to meet. And if you have courses coded wrong for those hours, that can impact your career tech funding. Course reporting is very important. There's a question in chat, where do we find what the core area stands for? Like you said, ELE was for English elective, but had you not said that, I would not known. So let's go back to PowerSchool. So you can see here when you pull down the codes, they are spelled out. So ELE is an elective unit, but ENE is an English elective. So here's where you can see these codes. They're also in the EMIS manual. There's, all these, the advanced study for science. To me, this is very helpful. You can easily see that chemistry and physics is an SAP and biology is an SAL. Astronomy, geology, earth and space are SAEs. So this is very helpful, when you're selecting the appropriate core area codes there, because it's got a little more detail. So I think that's it. Any other questions? Again, thanks for letting me hop on here and kind of talk EMIS so that everybody understands the importance.